Hello, AP Biology students. Let's go over the 8th section in Unit 7. In this section, we're going to talk about other types of selection. Up until this point, we've been talking about how evolution works through artificial and natural selection. There are other types and just processes within evolution and selection, so we're going to talk about those in this section. Sexual selection occurs when females select males based on some phenotypical feature. For example, like the peacock's tail feathers, the longer the tail, the more mates a male will have. This type of selection is based on the idea that females need to be choosy with their mates and males are going to compete with each other for the female's attention. This typically leads to something called sexual dimorphism, which is distinct differences in size and appearance between the sexes of animals. For example, in some species, the males are going to be larger. However, in other species, the females are going to be larger. And typically, again, males are going to compete for the female's choice. One concept that I like to go over in this section is called exaptation. This is where natural selection evolves previous traits for new uses. An example I like to use is feathers, where the first feathers were used for thermoregulation, but then they evolved to help dinosaurs fly. So the exaptation here is that these thermoregulator feathers are now going to be used for flight when they were originally evolved to help the dinosaurs stay warm. Another concept I'd like to cover during this section is the idea that evolution isn't perfect. Or in other words, evolution can't make perfect adaptations. It has to deal with the mutations that are available. I always like to use the giraffe's neck as an example of how evolution doesn't just produce perfect adaptations. There's this nerve that has to wrap around the top portion of the neck, so it has to travel very far just to go a little bit. This is again because evolution can't just make a perfect adaptation. This nerve traveling all the way up the neck and back down is something that was seen in earlier ancestors and something that it has to have unless there is a major shift or major mutation, but it's not going to just make that mutation. It has to just deal with what it has. Another example for humans is our backs. We, again, initially evolved to be, horizontal or parallel with the ground. And now that we walk upright, we have major back problems. And this is again because evolution can't just produce perfect adaptations. There will be problems with some of the adaptations that do evolve. The last example here of other selection is going to be heterozygous advantage, and this is where the heterozygous genotype has some phenotypical advantage somewhere in the body. For example, for humans, we have sickle cell trait, which is going to be resistant against malaria. This helps explain why certain disorders persist in populations. It's because the heterozygous is an advantage to have for certain areas. However, it is deadly to get the sickle cell anemia, which is the homozygous recessive form.